I had just signed the papers on my first home, 13 years of saving every dollar, skipping vacations, working double shifts, living with roommates, driving a rust bucket car finally. I had a place to call mine. And then, a certified letter arrived. It was a lawsuit. From my parents. They were suing me for $350,000, the cost of raising me. They claimed I owed them my house and demanded I sign it over to my younger brother. I'm Emily Carter. I'm 34. And yes, my own parents took me to court for buying a home. Before I tell you how a secret recording I made in my living room destroyed their entire plan in front of a judge, tell me in the comments, have you ever had someone you trusted completely turn on you? Because I did. And it changed everything. To understand how we got here, you need to understand my family. More specifically, my younger brother, Brandon. Brandon was the sun. I was the shadow. He was the golden child from the moment he opened his mouth. I was the daughter who was always so independent. That was their favorite word for me. Not smart, not strong, just independent, which in our house was code for we don't have to worry about you. I remember my 16th birthday vividly. My dad handed me a brochure from a local diner and said, "A young lady should learn to earn her keep." So I did. I got a job bussing tables, I paid for my own car insurance, and eventually, my own beat-up 2004 Civic, Brandon's 16th birthday, a brand new Jeep Cherokee with a red bow, in the driveway. My mom cried happy tears. A young man needs reliable transportation. My dad had declared proudly. And me, I stood on the porch, still in my work apron, watching everyone celebrate him like he was the second coming of Steve Jobs. It didn't stop there. When I enrolled in community college, I took out loans, worked 30 hours a week, and barely slept. Brandon got a full ride to a private liberal arts school in Vermont. Paid entirely by my parents. They even funded a semester abroad in Italy so he could find his artistic spirit. Meanwhile, I was finding empty Red Bull cans in my car and studying in the 24-hour library while my classmates partied. One night, I remember sitting under flickering fluorescent lights, cramming for an exam I had no brain power left for. I opened Instagram just to breathe, and there he was. Brandon, glass of wine in hand, leaning against a sun-drenched wall in Rome, caption living my dream. Thank you, Mom and Dad. Grateful. Family first, family first. When I once asked my mom just once if she could help me with a small loan for a data analytics bootcamp that could get me a better job, she sighed like I had asked her to donate a kidney. Oh, Emily. You know how tight things are with Brandon's tuition. You've always been so good at managing on your own. We're proud of you for that. It was such a perfectly wrapped cage. Praise for surviving a system they designed to exclude me. For years, I convinced myself it didn't matter, that being self-made was a badge of honor. I told myself I didn't need what Brandon had, but I did. Not the Jeep, not the tuition, just a little acknowledgement, a little room to breathe. Still, I kept grinding. I kept saving. Every birthday, every holiday, I'd show up, smile, play the role, and they'd smile back with just enough politeness to keep the illusion alive. And then when I finally had something of my own, they came for it. By the time I turned 21, I made myself a promise I would buy a house before I turned 35. Not a mansion, not some glass-walled condo overlooking the city, just a quiet, sturdy place that was mine. Every decision I made from that moment on circled around that promise. No vacations, no shopping sprees, no dining out unless it was a special occasion, and even then, I usually found a reason to say no. I shared a cramped apartment with 2 roommates well into my 30s. I drove the same faded blue Civic I bought when I was 16. Even when the AC broke in July and the windows squeaked like they were begging for mercy. I packed lunch every day. I brewed my own coffee. I bought everything in bulk, including shame. I worked my way up from a support role in customer service to a data analyst at a mid-sized logistics firm. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and then some. Every bonus, every tax refund, every birthday check from my grandparents went into a single account. I even named it the Brick Fund in my banking app. It became my obsession, my motivation, my mantra. I wasn't saving for freedom. I was saving for a foundation, something no one could take away. 2 months ago, it finally happened. I found a modest 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood just outside Raleigh, North Carolina. It wasn't flashy, but it had what I needed: sunlight, a garage, and silence. When the realtor handed me the keys, my hand trembled. I walked through the empty rooms barefoot, the scent of fresh paint curling into my lungs. I could still hear the echo of my steps bouncing off the walls. I stood in the kitchen mine. I opened every cabinet just to feel the click of ownership. The garage was the real dream. I'd always imagined turning it into a small creative workshop, maybe woodworking, maybe art, maybe just a place to breathe. I didn't know yet, but it was mine. I didn't throw a party. I didn't post on social media. I just stood alone in the doorway with the keys in my pocket and whispered I did it. It was the proudest moment of my life. Until 48 hours later when the letter arrived. At first, I thought it was more mortgage paperwork or maybe a final utility transfer. But the envelope felt heavy, thick, legal. I opened it standing in my brand new kitchen. The very first page took the air out of my lungs. Plaintiffs Walter and Diane Carter, defendant Emily Carter. It was real. My parents were suing me. They were demanding $350,000 for the cost of raising me. An itemized invoice of my entire childhood, diapers, dentist visits, school lunches. But that wasn't the worst part. They weren't asking for money. They were asking for the house. They wanted me to sign it over to Brandon so that he, the brother who had been handed everything, could now be handed the only thing I had ever earned. I felt like the floor disappeared under me. I sank to the tiles. The pages slipped from my hands. The smell of paint I once associated with victory now burned my nose like poison. There was no mistake. No misunderstanding. This was war. I didn't sleep that night. Or the one after. I walked the empty rooms of my new home like a ghost. The walls that once promised peace now felt like witnesses to betrayal. I couldn't bring myself to unpack. Every box sat unopened. Every corner felt temporary, like I didn't really belong there. I didn't call a lawyer. Not yet. I called the only person I knew wouldn't tell me I was crazy. Carter James. We used to work together at the firm. He was 10 years older than me, sharp-eyed and unsentimental. Before switching to tech, Carter had spent nearly a decade as a corporate attorney. He once told me he left law because computers lie less than people. We were casual friends, lunch break buddies, work conference co-conspirators, but he had always seen me. Really seen me. So I called him. My voice was hoarse. "Hey, you got a minute, Emily?" He sounded surprised. "You sound terrible." "What's wrong? I need legal advice. The real kind." We met at a rundown sandwich shop near our old office the next afternoon. I slid the thick envelope across the greasy table. Carter took out his glasses, read each page in complete silence, and then leaned back. His face was unreadable at first. Then his mouth tightened, his brows furrowed. "They're demanding the deed to your house and continuing to make you pay the mortgage for 2 years," I nodded. "This is predatory," he said flatly. "Legally baseless. A judge will shred this." But he paused, looking me dead in the eye. "Baseless doesn't mean harmless. They're counting on intimidation. This is a psychological war, not a legal one." He wasn't wrong. Because 2 days after I closed on my home, my dad called. Not to say congratulations, not to ask to see the place. He didn't even say hello. Just Emily. You need to do the right thing. Dad, your brother needs that house. What are you talking about? He's drowning in student debt. He needs a place to live. You're stable. You're good with money. You can always get another one. I was in the middle of deciding where to put my fridge. My hand froze on the measuring tape. This house is mine, I said, quietly. Don't be selfish, he snapped. This is for the family. I stood there, stunned. For years, they had preached independence to me like gospel. Now, when I had finally claimed something for myself, it was considered selfish. I had never spoken back to my father before, not like this. But something inside me cracked. My name is on the deed, I said. I paid the down payment. I pay the mortgage. It's mine. Silence. Then his voice changed low and venomous. You'll regret this, Emily. Family comes first. And he hung up. 2 days later, the lawsuit arrived. I told Carter everything. From Brandon's car to the unpaid tuition, from my boot camp rejection to the birthday lectures. He listened with that lawyer's stare, unblinking, focused. Then he said, You've documented everything, haven't you? Every dollar, every job, every time I asked for help and was told no. Good, he said. Then maybe you don't need a lawyer. I blinked. But you're a data analyst. You live and breathe paper trails. If anyone can connect the dots, present a clear, evidence-based case, it's you. But you'd need to be 10 times more prepared than they are. Ruthless, unemotional. Could you help me just... Unofficially, you prepare like a maniac, he said. And I'll be your ghost paralegal. For the first time in days, I breathed. I wasn't alone. That night. I opened the briefcase I hadn't touched since my promotion and dumped everything onto the floor bank statements. Pay stubs, rejection emails from my parents, even screenshots of Brandon's inspirational posts. Sometimes the hardest working people have to rely on family. He had written under a photo of himself standing in front of my house, grinning like he'd already moved in. My stomach twisted. I was being cast as the villain in my own story. And the rest of the family, they bought it. The calls started pouring in. Uncles, cousins, even family friends I hadn't spoken to in years. Emily, your parents are good people. Don't forget who raised you. Brandon's struggling. You have so much, he has nothing. It's just a house. It wasn't just a house. It was the only thing that had ever been mine. I blocked number after number. I deleted messages, but the hurt kept crawling back in. Until one night, my phone rang. Unknown number. I nearly declined it. But something told me to answer. Hello, Emily. It's Grandma. Her voice stopped me cold. We know what's happening, she said. And your grandfather and I, we're on your side. We've always been. What they're doing, it's wrong. We're so proud of you. I leaned against the kitchen wall and cried. Not because I was sad. Because for the first time, someone in my family saw me. After that call from my grandmother, something shifted. It wasn't hope, not yet. But it was something close. A flicker of steadiness. I had spent so long believing I was alone in that family. Hearing her voice, hearing her say she was proud of me was like someone placing a warm hand on my back while I stood at the edge of a cliff. And then came Grandpa. I hadn't heard his voice in months. But 2 nights later, he called. Emily, he said, You sound tired. I am. I whispered. I told him everything. The lawsuit, the demand, the silence, the shame. He listened without interrupting, breathing slow on the other end of the line. And when he finally spoke, his voice was thick with something I couldn't name. Grief. Maybe. Or guilt. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Your father, he's not thinking straight. And your mother, she's not helping. But this isn't just them. What do you mean? I asked. There was a long pause. We got a call from your Aunt Lisa last week. She's the one who put this whole idea in their heads. She found the lawyer. She's even paying for it. I felt the ground tilt under me. Aunt Lisa, she was always sweet, overly sweet, pinchy, huggy. Always told me I looked tired. Always asked why I hadn't settled down yet. But beneath her syrupy smile was something colder. I had seen it in her eyes, though I never had the words for it until now. Why would she do that, I asked. Jealousy, Grandpa said simply. She always thought your dad got the better deal in life. Now she sees your independence and thinks he doesn't deserve it. And neither do you. It was no longer just my parents. It was a campaign. A network of silent knives waiting for me to fail. I told Carter everything the next morning. He didn't react with surprise, just a grim nod. Good, he said. The more we know, the better we prepare. But this changes things. They're not just playing dirty. They're playing coordinated. What do? We build a war room, he said. Your house is now HQ. Every night, I'm coming over. And we're building this case from the ground up. And he meant it. Every evening after work, Carter showed up with legal pads, highlighters, and a 6-pack of cheap soda. We sat at my kitchen table until midnight, pouring through documents, arranging evidence into binders with color-coded tabs, red, financial independence blue, requests for support that were denied green, parental favoritism toward Brandon yellow, the home purchase. He taught me how to think like a lawyer. Don't just tell your story. Prove it. Let the paper speak. Let their silence shout. It became almost mechanical. That helped, because the emotions were too big, too sharp. Every document I touched had a memory attached to it. The job application from age 16, greasy apron, aching feet. The email where my mom said, "We just can't help right now. Brandon's tuition. You know the bank statements showing I transferred every bonus into my brick fund account." Carter made me detach. Focus. Organize. They think you're weak, he said. They think you'll fold. So we'll give them quiet, we'll give them polite, and then we'll give them a courtroom earthquake. There was something else I wasn't saying, but Carter saw it. He never said it out loud. But his presence was a kind of shield. When I couldn't speak, he didn't push. When I cried silently over the blueprints of my own heartbreak, he just passed me a tissue and kept working. It was the kindest kind of loyalty, unspoken, unwavering, and I needed that more than I could ever admit. One night, as we were packing up another binder, Carter paused. "You ever think about hiring a real lawyer every day?" "Why haven't you?" "Because this isn't just legal," I said. "It's personal. They turned my life into a story, so I want to be the one who writes the ending." He studied me for a long moment, then smiled just barely. "You're out of your damn mind, Carter, but I'm in. Let's win this war." And so we prepared, not with rage, but with order, with clarity, with facts. The quiet resistance had begun. Just as I started to feel like I was getting a handle on the chaos, things got worse. I was halfway through organizing scanned copies of my old tax returns when a notification popped up on my phone. Brandon had tagged our last name in a post. Curious, and against my better judgment, I clicked, and there it was. A photo of Brandon standing in front of my house. My house. He was grinning, arms stretched wide, sunglasses perched on his head like he was posing for a magazine spread. The caption, "Checking out the new family digs. Big things coming. Had family first. Blessed." I stared at the screen, my jaw slack. There were already dozens of comments from extended family, old neighbors, even people I didn't recognize. "So happy for you, Brandon. Your parents must be thrilled. You deserve it all." But I felt like I had been punched. I didn't need them to name me. I had already been erased from the narrative. And just like that, the shame came crawling back, not because I had done anything wrong, but because they had mastered the art of the story. They were painting me as the villain, the cold, selfish daughter who refused to help her poor struggling brother. Brandon even started posting motivational quotes over filtered selfies. Sometimes the strongest people still need help. Be the anchor they can count on. It wasn't just manipulation. It was performance. And the audience, they were eating it up. The calls started again. A cousin from Texas, a friend of my mother's from church, a neighbor I hadn't spoken to in years, all saying the same thing. He's your brother, Emily. It's just a house. Family is all we have. I spent one evening blocking so many numbers that my phone froze. The next morning, I woke up to an email from my aunt, Aunt Lisa, subject line. You brought this on yourself? I didn't open it. I didn't need to. But then came the drive-bys. I noticed a silver sedan parked across from my house. Same car, same spot. Different days, sometimes morning, sometimes after dark. It just sat there. Engine running. No one ever came to the door. At first, I thought I was being paranoid, until one day, I stepped outside and saw Aunt Lisa behind the wheel. She didn't wave, didn't even blink, just stared, and drove away. When I told Carter, his face turned to stone. We're not just fighting entitlement anymore, he said. This is harassment, this is intimidation. They want me to break, so let's make them think you will. He said, let's use it. I raised an eyebrow. Use what? Their arrogance, their overconfidence. They think you're still the quiet, obedient one. Let's give them a stage and let them hang themselves on it. That night, we talked strategy. I had been preparing the case like a professional. But now, it was time to act like a survivor. We installed security cameras. We saved every voicemail, every social media post, every drive-by in a dated log. We created a new binder aftermath. And the more we documented, the clearer it all became. This wasn't about money. This wasn't even about Brandon. It was about power, control, and their complete inability to see me as anything but a tool. A week later, a letter arrived from their attorney. Inside was a formal settlement offer. My hands shook as I read it. If I agreed to voluntarily transfer the deed to Brandon, my parents would graciously drop the $350,000 lawsuit. They called it a gesture of familial reconciliation. I called it what it was. A trap. I showed it to Carter. He didn't even blink. Don't respond. Don't sign. Don't even acknowledge it. They're testing your fear, hoping you'll fold before this ever sees a courtroom. But something about the letter sparked something in me. A memory. A shift. A plan. I turned to Carter. What if I call them, say I want to talk? One last meeting, just us, at the house. Emily, he said cautiously. That's a minefield. They'll twist everything. I know, I said. That's exactly what I'm counting on. That night, I sat alone in the dark, phone in hand. I scrolled through photos of Brandon smiling in front of my garage, of my dad making vague Facebook comments about disrespectful children. Then I took a breath and dialed. My mom answered on the third ring. Emily, she said coolly. I wasn't expecting a call. I got the settlement offer. I said evenly, I think we should talk. Just us. At the house. You want to talk, she asked, a note of satisfaction in her voice. Yes, I said, before the lawyers take over. She didn't hesitate. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. And just like that, the trap was set. The next evening, I staged the house like it was a meeting, not a minefield. I baked cookies, store-bought dough, but it didn't matter. I wanted everything to feel normal, familiar, disarming. On the coffee table, 2 mugs, a plate of cookies, and a folded napkin like some ridiculous peace offering. But the most important thing, my phone, fully charged. Voice recording app opened, screen dark. App running silently in the background. In my state, as long as one party consents to a recording. It's legal. I was that party. This wasn't entrapment, it was insurance. At 6:59 p.m. sharp, Their car pulled into the driveway. The sound of their footsteps on my porch hit me like a war drum. They walked in like they still owned the place. No knock, no pause, no shoes off. They didn't look at the walls I had painted, or the furniture I'd picked with care. They didn't ask how I was doing. They looked at me with that same mix of pity and steel, like surgeons preparing for a necessary amputation. "Emily," my father said, lowering himself onto the couch, "we're glad you came to your senses." "I haven't," I replied calmly. "I just wanted to understand. Why are you doing this?" My mother let out a soft sigh performed perfectly, like she'd practiced it in front of a mirror. "We're doing this for you," she said. "Don't you see? You've always been so independent. But family needs you. Brandon needs you. So because I figured out how to survive on my own, I'm the one who has to give up everything." My father frowned. "It's just a house," he snapped. "You can get another." "But Brandon, he's struggling. He needs stability. A man needs a foundation." I almost laughed. "You mean the foundation I spent 13 years building while you watched from a distance?" There was a silence then, a thick one, not awkward heavy. Then I leaned in, keeping my voice soft. "Let's be clear. The lawsuit, the $350,000, that's real. You truly believe I owe you for raising me." My mother waved her hand like the thought bored her. "Oh, for heaven's sake, Emily, don't be dramatic. Of course we don't think the court will actually make you pay that." I didn't move, didn't blink. "Then why file it?" She looked me dead in the eye. "Because it's the only way to make you do what's right without dragging this into something uglier. You're forcing our hand. Brandon deserves this. You need to understand your place in the family." My father nodded along, self-assured. "A little public pressure is a small price to pay for loyalty." Click. I felt a stillness come over me. Not calm clarity. They had just handed me everything I needed. "Thank you for coming," I said. "I think this conversation is over." They blinked, confused by how abruptly I ended it. My mother touched my arm as she passed. "You're doing the right thing, honey." I didn't answer. I waited until the door shut behind them. Then I reached into my pocket. My thumb hovered over the screen. Stop recording. Saved. I stared at that tiny file size on the screen, just a few kilobytes. And yet, it was the most powerful weapon I'd ever held. Not because it was loud, but because it was undeniable. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat in silence and listened to the audio 3 times. Each time, their voices sounded smaller, more desperate, more twisted. They thought they were winning, that I was being reeled in, but they never noticed how still I had become, how much I had stopped trying to belong. They came to take something from me, but they left giving me everything I needed to bury their case. For years, I had begged them to see me, and now, finally, they had. But it was too late. The day of the hearing arrived with gray skies and a bitter wind. I stood outside the county courthouse, my briefcase in one hand, my other gripping the strap of my coat. Inside the case weren't just papers. It was my life, every receipt, every email, every bank statement that told the story they tried to erase. I walked in alone. Across the lobby, I spotted them. My parents and Brandon, dressed like grief, like they were the victims of something unspeakable. My father wore a navy blazer he only dusted off for funerals. My mother had chosen a modest black dress and a single strand of pearls, as if mourning the daughter who refused to obey. Brandon was in a suit too big for him, like a child playing adult. They were huddled together with their attorney, a slick-looking man who glanced at me once, then looked away like I was contagious. I felt nothing. Well, no. That's not true. I felt ready. Carter was already seated in the public gallery. He couldn't sit beside me, couldn't speak, but when I passed, He reached out and gave my shoulder a firm squeeze. "Just the facts," he whispered. "You've got this." Inside the courtroom, I took my place at the defendant's table. Alone. Judge Amanda H. Evans entered a sharp-eyed woman in her late 50s with an expression that said she'd seen it all and wasn't easily impressed. She nodded once. "Let's begin." My parents' attorney went first. He painted a portrait worthy of Greek tragedy. Photos of me as a toddler flashed on a screen on a tricycle, at a birthday party, in a Halloween costume. He spoke of sacrifice, of sleepless nights, of parents who gave everything. And now, he concluded solemnly, their ungrateful daughter, having achieved success, refuses to honor the moral debt she owes. This case isn't about money, it's about justice. He held up the invoice, a 17-page document listing every cent they claimed they spent on me growing up. Braces $5,200, groceries $21,000, shared electricity $8,400, childhood existence $350,000. Then they called Brandon to the stand. He spoke softly, dramatically. "I just want to live in peace," he said. "To create, to heal. But I can't do that crashing on couches. I thought maybe my sister would help." The gallery nodded along. Sympathetic eyes glanced at me. Poor artist. Cold sister. It was theater. And then, "It was my turn, Ms. Carter," Judge Evans said. "You're representing yourself." "Yes, Your Honor. Proceed." I stood at the lectern, binder in hand. My heart pounded, but my voice steady. "The plaintiff's counsel has delivered a compelling story. The only problem is that it's fiction." Then I began. I walked the court through every exhibit. Each piece of evidence was labeled, numbered, cross-referenced. Bank statements showing my first deposit at 16, pay stubs from the diner, receipts for my tuition, textbooks, rent emails asking my parents for support and their replies. "We're proud of how independent you are. We just can't help." Brandon's tuition. You understand. I presented loan documents for the house showing the down payment came entirely from my savings account. Judge Evans listened closely, taking notes. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. By the time I was done, their attorney was shifting uncomfortably. My mother clutched her pearls. Brandon looked down at his lap. "Your Honor," I said, "I have no further evidence to present, but I would like to call one witness." My mother gasps. The lawyer tried to object. Judge Evans waved him off. My mother rose stiff, hesitant, and made her way to the stand. I stood, heart thudding. "Mom," I said, "you stated that this lawsuit is about what's fair, that you want what's best for the family." "Yes. And you believe Brandon deserves this house." "Yes. He's struggling. He needs support. And you've always been fine on your own," she snapped. I took a breath. Time for the turn. "Do you recall our conversation at my house on the evening of March 12th? "Yes," she said cautiously. "Did you say that you knew a judge would never award you the house or the money? I don't recall." "Did you say this lawsuit was filed as a way to pressure me into giving Brandon the house?" "Absolutely not." I paused, looked at the judge, then reached into my bag. "Your Honor," I said, "I have a recording. You could hear a pin drop." Their lawyer jumped up. "Objection, Your Honor. That recording is legal under state law," I said calmly. I was a consenting party. Judge Evans turned to my mother. "Mrs. Carter, you are under oath. I will ask one more time. Did you tell your daughter that this lawsuit was a ploy?" My mother looked around like the walls were closing in. At her husband. At Brandon. At the attorney who suddenly looked very far away. Then she broke. "Yes," she whispered. A crack. A sob. It wasn't supposed to go this far. We wanted her to do the right thing. Judge Evans's face hardened. She turned to the plaintiffs. "This," she said, her voice cold as steel, "is one of the most egregious abuses of the judicial process I have ever witnessed. You filed a frivolous, manipulative case to emotionally blackmail your own daughter. Then to me, Ms. Carter, you've conducted yourself with more integrity and legal clarity than many trained attorneys. This case is dismissed with prejudice, and I am referring the plaintiff's counsel to the State Bar for misconduct. Gavel. Boom. It was over. I stood there, still gripping the lectern. My knees were shaking, but I didn't fall. Across the room, my family sat frozen faces, pale, masks cracked. They thought they could take from me because I'd always given, but this time, I didn't fold. I fought and I won. Outside the courthouse, Carter was waiting. He didn't say anything, just opened his arms and pulled me into a hug so tight it cracked my ribs. "You did it," he said. "You actual legend." And as we stood there, two quiet warriors on courthouse steps, I finally let go of the breath I'd been holding for years. I wish I could say it ended at the courthouse. I wish the gavel came down, and that was it done. Clean, over. But people like my parents, like my aunt, like Brandon, they don't lose quietly. They don't retreat. They escalate. 2 days after the hearing, the retaliation began. It started with Aunt Lisa, a voicemail. Slurred, furious. "You think you're so clever. Don't you humiliating your own mother like that? You broke this family, Emily. You'll get what's coming to you." Then another, and another. She left 8 messages in 2 days, each one more unhinged than the last. Some she cried, some she screamed. One was just breathing. I didn't respond. I didn't even listen to them after the third. Instead, I saved them, filed them under a new folder Carter and I labeled post-verdict hostility. Then came Brandon. He launched a GoFundMe page titled, "Help Me Rebuild After Family Betrayal." The cover photo, a black and white selfie of him staring out a rainy window. The story he told, a work of pure fiction. He claimed that his financially powerful sister had used legal loopholes to steal his rightful inheritance, that he had been promised a family home, only to have it ripped away by greed. He asked for $50,000, and some people believed it, mostly distant relatives, some old art school friends, a few strangers. It didn't raise much, just a few $100s, but it wasn't about the money. It was about the narrative, and once again, I was cast as the villain. A few days later, I noticed the silver sedan again. Parked across the street, lights off, engine running. This time, I walked out the front door with a flashlight. Lisa. She didn't even flinch, just rolled down the window and smiled like it was a Sunday picnic. "Nice neighborhood," she said. Shame it came at such a cost. I didn't respond. I just walked back inside and called Carter. "Enough," I said. "I want a restraining order." It was surprisingly easy. I had everything. The voicemails, the drive-by logs captured by the security cam we'd installed, screenshots of the GoFundMe page. The judge, this time a different one, took one look at the file and signed off without hesitation. Lisa was now legally banned from coming within 500 feet of me, my home or my job. As for the GoFundMe, I submitted a fraud report along with court documents proving Brandon's case had been dismissed with prejudice. The page was taken down within 24 hours. It had only raised $75. The last donation, anonymous, $5. Maybe grow up. I laughed for the first time in weeks. A week later, the phone rang again. This time, it was my father. His voice was off, not angry, not arrogant, just deflated. "Emily," he said, "your aunt is beside herself. You got a restraining order against family. She was harassing me," I replied, calm, controlled. "This is tearing everyone apart," he said. "Your mother cries every night. Brandon won't leave his room. This isn't what we wanted. It's exactly what you created." I said, "You made your choices. Now live with them." He went quiet. "Then what do you want from us?" "Emily, an apology money." "What would it take to fix this?" And here was the strange thing. I didn't want an apology. Or money, or revenge. What I wanted was peace. I don't want anything, I said softly. Just leave me alone. Don't call. Don't show up. Let me live my life the one you tried to take from me. Silence. Then the old line. The last weapon. We're your family. I closed my eyes. Inhaled. Then said you were my family. But you stopped acting like it a long time ago. I'm not the one who broke this. I'm just the one who stopped pretending it wasn't broken. I ended the call. Blocked the number. Then blocked my mother's. Then Brandon's. Then Lisa's. With each tap, it felt less like severing and more like clearing space for something new. That weekend, I adopted a dog from the local shelter. His name was Max. One ear flopped permanently sideways like he'd been through hell and come out oddly adorable. He slept beside my bed that first night, curled like a comma. A soft, snoring punctuation mark at the end of an exhausting chapter. Healing didn't come all at once. There was no single moment where the pain disappeared or the past felt resolved. It came in tiny pieces. Quiet moments. Small victories. Like the first night I slept through without waking up from a courtroom nightmare, or the time Max barked at a squirrel, and I laughed so hard I spilled coffee on myself. Or the afternoon I stood in my garage, the one I used to dream about turning into something creative and realized I wasn't afraid to start anymore. Carter kept visiting. He said it was for Max. Max pretended not to care, but he'd sit by the door 10 minutes before Carter ever showed up. Sometimes we didn't talk about the lawsuit at all. We talked about dumb things, TV shows, bad takeout, his weird obsession with mechanical keyboards. And other times, he'd look at me like he was trying to solve a puzzle he already knew the answer to. "You're different now," he said once. "Tired, different, no." He smiled. "Loud, different. You used to whisper yourself down. Now you take up space. That night, I didn't sleep. I painted instead. I hadn't picked up a brush in 5 years. But that night, I covered the entire garage wall with swirling blue, gold, and ash gray shapes. Messy, loud, unapologetic. I called it inheritance. I started writing too. Not to publish. Not yet. Just for me. I wrote down every detail of the court case. The betrayal, the rage, the rebuild. Then I started writing about the in-between moments. The memories I used to skip over because they hurt too much. Like the time I broke my ankle at 10 and still hobbled to wash dishes because Brandon needs the TV. Or the year I won a state math competition and no one showed up. Each time I put it on paper, it stopped living in my chest. I reconnected with my grandparents. My grandfather came over one weekend with a wooden birdhouse he made himself. We sat in my backyard, just the three of us and Max, and hung it on the tree that shaded the back fence. "Birds know where it's safe to land," he said. "So do people. You made something they can land in now." We didn't talk about my parents, not because we were pretending, because they no longer defined the story. One night in early spring, Carter and I sat on the back steps, drinking cheap beer out of coffee mugs. "Do you regret anything?" he asked. "Some things." I admitted. I regret not speaking up sooner, not drawing lines earlier, but mostly I'm proud. "You should be," he said. "You didn't just survive. You rewrote the whole ending." We clinked mugs. "To the ones who chose peace over permission," I said. "To the ones who made family from scratch." He added, "Sometimes I still get letters from distant relatives, polite ones, curious ones, a few veiled barbs disguised as concern. I don't answer. I don't need to defend myself to people who only ever showed up to pick sides, not offer love. Because now I know something I didn't before: family isn't built on guilt. It's built on consistency, and choice, and respect. These days, my home is filled with laughter. Sometimes it's mine, sometimes it's Carter's, sometimes it's Max barking at a moth like it owes him rent. The living room has mismatched pillows. The garage smells like paint and sawdust. There's a dent in the hallway where I dropped a bookshelf while dancing to Lizzo. It's perfect. Because it's mine. All of it. And no one is taking it away again.